guys, we're going to go over a basic lecture on billing and some brief CPT codes, just kind of enough to get you introduced to the topic before you go out into the clinic on your 2 weeks. So Medicare is really the one that kind of makes all the rules when it comes to this stuff, and the things that we're going to talk about, especially like the 8-minute rule and making sure that you follow that, certainly apply to Medicare, which is going to be a lot of your patients. And this is also, let me go back just a little bit. This is Medicare Part B. We're talking primarily like outpatient type billing. Inpatient is different. But since you are all most likely going to outpatient clinics, we're going to kind of focus on that for now. One of the things that we're going to talk about as far as CPT codes go are timed versus untimed codes. And I have a list of all of them for you. You certainly don't need to memorize this, and just rest assured, none of these questions are going to end up on the final exam or anything like that. But you do want to know the difference between timed and untimed codes. It does make a difference when it comes to your final billing and processing. The 8-minute rule, like I said, it is followed by Medicare, and there are some other commercial insurance carriers that follow it as well. So we will discuss that a little bit as well. So these are your timed versus your untimed codes. Timed codes are usually your more time-intensive codes. These are the codes where there's going to be one-on-one time spent between the therapist and the patient. So therefore, these codes usually reimburse a little bit higher. So as far as modalities go, these would be things like ultrasound, Ionto, and attended eStim. Then most of your other codes, therapeutic procedures, which is also therapeutic exercise, 97110, therapeutic activities, neuromuscular reeducation, manual therapy. Again, these are codes and these are services that are assumed that the PT or the PTA is working directly with the patient for those times that are being billed for. Untimed codes are a lot of your modalities, so things like hot packs, cold packs, unattended eStim, which is most of what we have done, paraffin, whirlpool, biofeedback, TENS. Also your initial evaluation and your reevaluation fall under there. So what that means with untimed codes is that it doesn't matter how long you do that particular treatment. So like for a hot pack, it doesn't matter how long you leave that hot pack on, you will bill 1 unit for that. So if you leave a hot pack on for 10 minutes, you bill 1 unit of hot pack. If you leave a hot pack on for an hour, it's 1 unit of hot pack. So it doesn't matter how long those procedures take, you get reimbursed a certain amount just for doing them. Whereas on the flip side, those timed codes, if you spend, say, 15 minutes doing exercises with a patient, that would usually equate to 1 unit. If you spend 30 minutes doing exercises, that would be 2 units. So you would get reimbursed more for spending more time doing those. And again, because those are designed to be one-on-one time with the therapist and the patient, you can bill more for those. Okay, so again, untimed codes, 1 unit regardless of the amount of time spent on the modality. And again, that is mostly modalities that fall into that category. One thing to keep in mind too, even modalities applied to different body parts will be billed as 1 unit. So let's say you had someone who was in a car accident, they get a hot pack on their neck and their shoulder and their back and their ankle. It's still 1 unit of hot pack, okay? Timed codes are billed according to the 8-minute rule, which basically states that you can't bill for anything that isn't performed for at least 8 minutes, and it's assuming that all timed procedures average about 15 minutes per unit. So if you look at, again, 15 minutes is about 1 unit, and at least half of that would be 8 minutes. So you need to do at least half of a unit in order to bill for it. Again, this is assumed also that it is direct one-on-one time spent with the patient, so the PTA or the PT working directly with the patient, not a technician. You cannot bill for time that a tech is working with a patient. So here is the chart, the table for the 8-minute rule somewhere in your clinic. This will be printed out, posted somewhere. If there's an office space where you all sit down and do your billing, this will be there. So you don't have to memorize this. This will always be around. If you have a clipboard with you, maybe you print out a little table and keep it on your clipboard with you. But this basically gives you the breakdown of how many units you can bill based on the amount of time that your patient is in therapy. So again, the expectation is that 1 unit equates to about 15 minutes of time spent with a patient. If you consistently bill for less than 15 minutes, you might be audited. Your chart might get reviewed to see why you're not spending about 15 minutes per unit with your patient. So we're going to go through some examples, and these have explanations with them just to kind of see how to run through these and how to think about these. So one of the biggest things that we need to think about is total time spent in therapy. I don't know that there's any clinic out there that isn't basically clocking patients in and clocking patients out. So that's where we start. We need to know how long our patient was at therapy, and that's going to help us determine how many units we're going to be able to bill for their visit. So in this example, a patient spent 24 minutes doing neuromuscular re-ed and 23 minutes of therapeutic exercise. And those are the CPT codes for that. One of the first places I worked, I had to input my own billing at the end of each day, and I had to do that by codes. So I learned those codes pretty quickly. You may never have to do that, so you may never need to know those codes. But just know that all PT codes start with 97, and then there's 3 digits after that. So anyway, the person did 24 minutes of neuro re-ed and 23 minutes of TheraX, which means they spent a total time in treatment of 47 minutes. According to the 8-minute rule, 47 minutes means that we have 3 billable units because it falls between 38 and 52 minutes. So we can bill 3 units for the time that the patient spent there. So we could bill 2 units of neuro re-ed, 1 of TheraX. If you look at them independently, 23 minutes is enough to bill 2 units of TheraX. 24 minutes would be enough to bill 2 units of neuro re-ed. But the problem is the patient only spent a total of 47 minutes, which is 3 units. So the correct answer for billing for this is 2 units of neuro re-ed and 1 for therapeutic exercise, because neuro re-ed took slightly longer than therapeutic exercise. So you bill the 2 units to that and the 1 unit to TheraX. Okay? All right. Next example, 20 minutes of neuro re-ed and 20 minutes of TheraX. So again, looking at those 2 activities independently, 20 minutes is 1 unit. So it would be 1 unit of neuro re-ed, 1 unit of TheraX, but if we look at the total treatment time, we've got 40 billable minutes. 40 billable minutes still falls under 3 units, so we can bill 3 units for this patient. So now we need to figure out, where do we bill 2 units, where do we bill 1 unit? So the correct answer is, again, we can bill 3 units, so bill 2 units for one service and 1 for the other. Just don't bill all 3 for the same. So just knowing what I know, I would bill 2 for neuro re-ed and 1 for TheraX, because neuro re-ed does usually reimburse a little bit higher. And since you spent the same exact amount of time on both of them, you can legitimately do that. Next example, 33 minutes of TheraX, 7 minutes of manual therapy. So we have total of 40 minutes, which again is going to be 3 units of billing. The issue here with this one is that we only spent 7 minutes doing manual therapy, and we're talking about the 8-minute rule, which says we can't bill for anything that we didn't spend at least 8 minutes doing. So my advice to you here is that you were the one doing the manual therapy. Do the manual therapy for 1 minute longer. Get to the 8 minutes so that there isn't confusion with all this. But again, we have 40 total minutes to bill, which gives us 3 units. So we have to distribute them between TheraX and manual therapy. So the answer is to bill 2 units of TheraX and 1 unit of manual therapy. But we only did 7 minutes of manual therapy. Here's why we can still bill the 1 unit of that. We count the first 30 minutes of TheraX as 2 full units. Then there were 3 minutes left over, because remember, we did 33 minutes of TheraX. So then we compare that 3 minutes to the 7 minutes that we did manual therapy. We did the manual therapy longer. So we will bill the 1 unit of manual therapy think about maybe kind of like cheating those 3 minutes over to make it like 10 minutes worth there. But the correct answer is to bill 2 units of Therax, 1 unit of manual therapy. Next, we have 18 minutes of Therax, 13 minutes of manual therapy, 10 minutes of gait training, and 8 minutes of ultrasound. Okay, so at least we've done everything for at least 8 minutes on this one, but we've done 4 different things. We have 49 total minutes that we can bill. 49 minutes is 3 units, so we can only bill for 3 things. So the answer to this one is that we are going to bill for the 3 things that we spent the most time doing. So that would be the Therax, the manual therapy, and the gait training. You'll still document the ultrasound, you still did the ultrasound, you just can't bill for the ultrasound because there weren't enough minutes, total minutes of treatment. Here's a fun one. So with 7 minutes of neuro-re-ed, 7 minutes of Therax, and 7 minutes of manual therapy. So that gives us 21 minutes of therapy. 21 means 1 unit. We did 3 different things. We did them all for the same amount of time, and we did them all for 7 minutes. So the answer to this one is to bill for 1 unit and to just pick one because you did them all for the same amount of time. I would analyze this moving forward. I would see if there are any things that could possibly be added to this patient's treatment session that might bump us up a little bit longer in each one. And I'm not saying to add unnecessary treatments, but when you're doing 3 different things for a short period of time, you might want to think about adding things that might be beneficial to the patient, especially if it will kick you up in reimbursement a little bit. Okay, so one more. 20 minutes of heat and e-stim together, so they were combined, and then 25 minutes of Therax and 8 minutes of manual therapy. So our total treatment time is 53 minutes. So one thing that we haven't looked at in any of the other examples is this is a combination of timed and untimed codes. All of the codes that we've looked at before have been timed codes. So now the heat and the e-stim got added in, and these are untimed codes. So the first thing we need to do is we need to subtract out the heat and the e-stim. So we take the 53 total minutes, we subtract out the 20 minutes of heat and e-stim. We'll bill 1 unit of heat, 1 unit of e-stim, because again, those are untimed codes and we just bill 1 unit regardless of how long we spent doing them. When you subtract that out, that leaves us 33 minutes of treatment between the Therax and the manual therapy. And for that, we can bill 2 units for that. So then the question is, do we bill 2 Therax or 1 Therax and 1 manual? So the answer is, looking at the 33 minutes of time, we have 2 units. It would be most appropriate to bill 2 units of therapeutic exercise because more time was spent doing that. Just to go over some current issues in reimbursement and things that you guys may have been hearing, there have been some recent changes in a skilled nursing facility and home health reimbursement. They use a PDPM model now, which replaced the RUG model. The RUG model used to place patients in categories like ultra high, high, medium, low, based on the total number of minutes that they would spend in therapy a week. So it was really important to keep track of the patient's minutes in therapy, and that's a lot of what reimbursement was built on. Now, patients are broken down more into categories, and we also do need to keep in mind group and concurrent therapy. So if you're treating more than one patient at once, things are going to be billed a little bit differently for that. There have also been changes to the Medicare fee schedule, which means the fee schedule is the amount that they reimburse per unit, per billing code. So they have cut it over recent years. An 8% cut is a pretty significant cut in reimbursement for the charges, especially when you think that some clinics have about 50% of their patient population who are Medicare recipients. And then another big thing was that in 2022, Medicare implemented a rule that PTA services would be reimbursed at 85% of what a PT service would be. So clinics are still trying to kind of figure out a way to deal with this. Do they have the PTs treat all the Medicare patients so that they get full reimbursement? Do they split it up a little bit? How? It is a challenge. It is a challenge, and APTA is fighting this, but it is still in place. And currently, PTAs are not being reimbursed at the same level as PTs for the same services. So, we can chat about that at some point if you want to, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that that is happening now. All right, so there is a billing assignment that goes along with this for you to complete, so take a look at that and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.